I'm Steve Carter at Frog Story Records. In this video, we're going to look at notes on practicing. This is my website, Frog Story Records, and we're going to go to the Player's Journal, which is my blog. You can see from the dates up here the links to the various years in the blog. I've been keeping this since 2002. We're going to click on this link, the Player's Journal Topic Index. These are the topics that are in the Player's Journal entries, and we're going to select Practicing. That takes us to the index, and you can see under Practicing there are several entries. We're going to take this one at the top, which is the most recent entry, and we'll click on that, and that takes us to the blog entry. I posted a new scale exercise on my lesson page, all 12 keys, good reading practice, and if I click on this image, it pops up the PDF so you can save it and download it. Now there are lots of exercises on the web like that, and that's an important part of practicing, but we're going to look at other aspects of practicing. This topics link will take us back to the topic index, and I'm going to select warming up. This is from the year 2002. This was actually the first entry I made in this Player's Journal. Friday evening, start of Labor Day weekend, a good time to sit on the front porch and play. It's a windowed porch with bamboo blinds, so I have some privacy. It's quiet except for an occasional passing car. The porch of this 100-year-old house has pine paneling and a mahogany or maybe cherry wood slatted ceiling, so acoustics are warm and cozy. I decided that today my warm-up would be loose and easy scales and arpeggios over the first few chords of Here's That Rainy Day. On gigs I always use that as my opening tune, so warming up with it helps to create a gig mood. Some days I feel like being much more regimented and I warm up with 3-octave major and minor scales, 9th arpeggios and all keys in one position, or something equally as formulated. Some days that's what I need, but today I need to just play. G major 7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, A flat major 7. Somehow my fingers are finding some chromatics between the chord tones that I usually do not find. Maybe the muse is enjoying this beginning of the holiday weekend as well, and is delighting in taking possession of my fingers for a moment. I don't question, I just follow the line where it wants to go. Now I'm going to go back to the topic index and look at the next entry, Tune of the Night. This happens to be the next entry I made in the journal. Scotch and Soda turned out to be the tune of the night. I picked up the guitar not knowing what I was going to play, only having a few minutes and not knowing what I wanted to play, but not wanting to start with exercises. The tune suggested itself somehow. That's the first tune on my solo CD, and I put a lot of thought into that choice. The first tune needs to set the listener's expectations. I think it does that. This CD is not about hot licks or recognizable bebop phrases. It's a series of stories. I used to sing my kids to sleep with this song. Now they are adults. In the 1960s and early 70s, I used to sing it on solo gigs. So the song has lots of connotations for me. I like the way it starts on the 4 chord, then goes to flat 7-7 with sharp 11 in the melody, some of my favorite sounds. I end it with a vamp, E flat 6, A flat 7, which has a nice bluesy feeling. On the CD, I play that, I think, 3 times. On gigs, I vamp longer, and when I'm playing at home, I just play it over and over, savoring, reminiscing. Back to the index. We'll take a look at the next entry. Letting the line proceed on its own. This entry is based on an email I got from a guitar player. And he wrote, I was just listening to Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. He's referring to a track on one of my CDs. Really digging the way you will just let the rhythm bass line drop out, letting the line proceed on its own. You keep the time really nicely when you do that. I know it can get a little dicey. Letting the line proceed on its own. Very well put. I've always felt that improvising at its best is letting the line go where it wants to go. The poet Robert Duncan used to talk about the law of the. If you start a sentence with the, there are certain places that sentence wants to go. You will have a tough time, for example, if for the next word you choose also. Then there are the obviousnesses, like quick. Somewhere between lies poetry. There is the law of C. Well, not really, but there are tendencies in the notes. For example, if you played 6 notes of the scale, the listener wants to hear the other one. Somehow, that reminded me of Hesse's writing about melody, so I dug through my old journals. Actually, I just did a 5-second search with Word, and I found, this is an excerpt from Hermann Hesse's novel Gertrude, and here we're hearing the voice of Kuhn, the composer. I was patient and not altogether indolent, but I was not a good scholar, and during my last year at school, I made very little effort. This was not due to laziness or my infatuation, but to a state of youthful daydreaming and indifference, a dullness of senses and intellect that was only now and then suddenly and powerfully pierced when one of the wonderful hours of premature creative desire enveloped me like ether. I then felt as if I were surrounded by a rarefied, crystal-clear atmosphere in which dreaming and vegetating were not possible, and where all my senses were sharpened and on the alert. Little was produced during these hours, perhaps 10 melodies and several rudimentary harmonic arrangements. But I will never forget the rarefied, almost cold atmosphere of that time, and the intense concentration required to give the melody the proper, singular, no longer fortuitous movement and solution. I was not satisfied with these meager achievements and never considered them as either valid or good, but it became clear to me that there would never be anything as desirable and important in my life as the return of such hours of clarity and creativeness. At the same time, I also had periods of daydreaming when I improvised on the violin and enjoyed the intoxication of fleeting impressions and exalted moods. I soon knew that this was not creativeness, but just playing and running riot, against which I had no guard. I realized that it was one thing to indulge in daydreaming and intoxicating hours, and another to wrestle strenuously and resolutely with the secrets of form, as if with fiends. I also partly realized at that time that true creativity isolates one and demands something that has to be subtracted from the enjoyment of life. So that was Hermann Hesse. Go back to practicing. Balance. I've been playing and practicing a lot more lately, and have a little discomfort in my left arm. Years ago, when I was writing the Musician's Health series for Guitar Player, I learned how to deal with that. Playing guitar uses the contractor muscles on the front of the arm, the non-hairy side, and we squeeze the neck, or to a lesser extent, the extensor muscles on the back of the hairy side of the arm.